Welcome back to Rafting Magazine. I am Trevor, and today we are going to be talking about perimeter lines. Got into a discussion with Zach Collier from Northwest Rafting, who has an awesome video, by the way, on all of this, and encourage you guys to check that out. I'll drop a link down below. But wanted to talk about perimeter lines and what I thought of them, and add my 2 cents to the discussion, and dive into some myths, some thoughts, some things you want to think about, and just some general ideas on perimeter lines. So before we get into it, make sure that you like and subscribe, and make sure you're getting all of our updates and all of our content. So let's dive into it. So the types of materials you want to use in this, we've shown that cam straps aren't necessarily the best thing. They could be good in a pinch just because of the convenience and handiness of them, but they're not exactly what you want to be using for your perimeter lines. So a couple options. One of them is rope. So this is some Dyneema rope, 1/4 inch. I would not recommend the 1/4 inch. I would get like 7/16, something really thick that you can grab onto when your hands get cold, especially if you're winter boating. You want something that you can easily grab onto, especially if your hands are like cold and raw and aren't working too well in the water. So again, 7/16, pretty good. I'm not typically very partial to rope, and just the only reason is you can see on my knuckles here this little bit. That's from rope. I rake it. I paddle guide. So if you're rowing, it doesn't really matter. You're kind of away from the rope. You're not really paddling unless you have bow paddlers, but still sometimes I rake my knuckles across the rope as I make that forward stroke. So when it does, it just digs into my hands. I get rope burn on my knuckles. I could wear some paddling gloves. That'd probably alleviate that problem, but it's just, again, not what I'm partial to. My preference would be some tubular webbing. I like tubular webbing. I think it's a good option. It's pretty soft on my hands, and then most tubular webbing like this will hold up to I think it's maximum brake strength is 4,000 pounds. I'm not exactly sure on the working load limit, but I will put that in the article so that you guys can check out what different types of ropes and different types of things do when they have when they're put on as a perimeter line. So those are all different options that you could use. Now, rigging it is going to be the most important part. Again, we want those lines tight, so how are we going to do that? Let's dive into the boat and take a look and see what those options might be. One of the things that Zach talks about in his video is having 2 separate lines split around the boat like this. So the D-ring is the thing holding them together. Now, with this setup, it's not a big deal. There's some slight variations on how people do it. Sometimes people will do one continuous perimeter line all the way around, linked into one D-ring at the end. In Zach's version, again, he uses 2 different D-rings or 2 different sections of rope attached to D-rings at the bow and stern of the boat. Ultimately, when we're looking at maximum brake strength and we're looking at working load limits, it doesn't really matter. This D-ring is way stronger than any of this rope is going to be. This is steel. This is rope. As soon as you start putting knots in it, you lower the minimum brake strength and the working load limit. So whatever happens there, those knots are going to be the weakest point in the chain, not anything else. The thing you do need to worry about is having old D-rings. Now, this is a brand new D-ring, and it is welded into this boat. Some boats, they're glued on, and most of the failures I've had on perimeter line systems when I go to tug on them, if I were to put, say, this rope, and I clipped it into a carabiner and clipped it into the perimeter line, and we're tugging this on this boat to get it off of a rock because it's wrapped, that is going to be, the failure point is going to be right here. Now, I talk about this a lot because, when I do a lot of low volume creek boating, wraps and pins are pretty common. So those are the things that we're going to look at when I'm boating. Now, getting swimmers back in the boat or having people right next to you is really important too. So again, you're going to just want to make sure your lines are tight because of that reason. Start with a Munter Hitch, thread that through, come around, back up here. Now this will allow us to move and tighten and adjust this however we need. We're going to back it up with a half hitch. tighten that down. And then it's real important with tubular webbing just to make sure you dress this knot really well. So we're coming back around. Slide through. With tubular webbing, you may also experience a little bit of an issue having enough room on the D-ring, so just make sure that your D-rings are either large enough. If you're on a boat with smaller D-rings, then you may want to adjust that as well. The next thing left to do with your perimeter line is to thread it through all the D-rings. And when you do this, if you're using tubular webbing or if you're using rope, just make sure that your perimeter line is not wrapping around itself or twisting in any way. You want to have it as flat as possible to make it much easier when you're trying to grab onto it. Since a Munter hitch has a tendency to roll over itself, now is a good time when you're finishing all of your perimeter line to make sure you have somebody else here helping you if you can. And if you're just out in the field by yourself too, or you're waiting for people at put-in, you still can do it yourself, but eventually you're going to want some help tightening this. So start the Munter hitch. And one of the other things that you want to bear in mind is that you want to make sure it's as tight as possible around the rest of the entire boat. So if you can get it as tight as you can around the whole boat, and then we're just going to take and throw our half hitches into the end here. Start with a nice half hitch there. I'm going to tighten that down as far as it'll go. And then come around for your next one. And if it looks a little weird or feels a little weird, especially if you're using tubular webbing like I am, you may need to play with it a little bit, dress these things a little bit better, just to try and make them stay exactly where they need to be. And you may have little bits at the end, and at this point it's good to either chop those off, or sometimes you might want to make a bow line out of it. However, definitely would recommend using another piece of rope for your bow line. It certainly helps quite a bit more to make that work properly. So I would cut these off, but it's your choice as you rig your boat. It just depends on what you're comfortable with, what you've trained with, and what you most enjoy using out on the water. Thanks for checking out this article. I really appreciate you guys coming by and trying to learn more about perimeter lines and what is going to work best for you and what options are out there. So again, hope it's helpful, and if you have questions, please make sure you drop those in the comments below. Also, I super encourage you to go check out Zach's video. He's got some great content on there and some great shots on how he rigs things. I believe Zach does a little bit more rowing than I do, so different, little different regional variations, again, just because I paddle boat a lot more and I'm a lot more likely to rake my hands on the rope. I just prefer that softness of the tubular webbing, but my personal preference, it does have its benefits and disadvantages that you gotta watch out for. So again, check out Zach's video, take a look at that, send him some love, and make sure you just get as much information as you can. I'm not the only source out there, I'm not the only boater out there. This is my opinion, and it's what I have come to do and come to find works best for me. So please let me know what works best for you guys and if this helps out. So again, please make sure you like, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time on Rafting Magazine.